I really feel so blessed to live in like a really beautiful area. We are sitting right now, or I am sitting because we walked a bunch and I am just ready to sit for a minute. I am sitting, the kids are exploring on this beach behind me, like literally, like I don't even know if you can see or not, is the Roosevelt cottage, which is where President Roosevelt and Eleanor used to come quite a bit. So I'll be telling you about all of that, but I also wanted to share with you guys, this is what unschooling looks like. And maybe your area looks completely different. Maybe it's different museums. Maybe it's, you know, finding different animals like in a city park. Or maybe it's like me, just you try to go to like the visitor center or touristy type places and ask around and see what people might have in store in that area. And you can learn so much about the area and find yourself some places just to travel. All of this here is free. It was the cost of the gas for us to get here, which wasn't much because we live pretty close to it. Yes, it's on the Canadian side, so we needed to have you need like a passport or Nexus cards or something like that, but because we live so close, we try to keep up with those things. But yeah, gorgeous. It's kind of interesting, like, and I think that the kids are able to put things more hands-on when you're able to give them a little bit of something. Like if we read about Franklin Roosevelt or whatever in a book, they're going to remember just a little tidbit of things. So on our way over this morning, we listened to Real Cool History for Kids, and she has a thing on, actually it talks a lot about his childhood, which was kind of cool, but it's really neat to just be here sitting like where him and his children played, to visit the house that they were in. The people here are really friendly. They come with these really cool, when you go in, they're very family friendly here if you guys are interested in coming. They have like these little like treasure map things, and there's treasure maps for the beach as well as for inside of the house. So it was very interactive for even my younger children, which was really nice. They were very friendly. They're like, oh, did you spy something in this room? Or the tour guide that we got was very friendly like that. So I feel very blessed that we had somebody that was like that. But there's something different about like bringing your kids to some place historic, that something happened, whether it's a battlefield, or whatever it is, that it ingrains in them and they want to know more, and they're just engaged in wanting more and more and more. So I could see their wheels turning, and this is more about not just necessarily like the Roosevelts, but the Roosevelts were very outdoorsy people. So there was trails all over here, but also about like wildlife and sea life and there's tons of different birds and nature trails and that type of stuff, and getting them out to see those things. But also it's really cool to think that somebody so long ago that was the President of the United States was here with his family, with his children. His wife was here. His wife loved this place. They both did. And just to know that they were here, just, you know, most of the time their nannies probably brought the children down here, but just to kind of put your own children in the children's shoes of a child that has been there. And I like to read different stories that actually are from like a child's perspective or a child of a family or something like that, so that the kids can really get engaged in that. It's really special, but it's special also to bring them to a place that something actually happened, because it makes it personal to them. So that is just one tip for unschooling. I think sometimes we get this unschooling mantra or something that you don't do anything, but you still have to parent I was listening to something the other day, and it's like, you still have to parent. You don't let your kids sit around playing games all day. Like, no, you still have to be that parent. If your kids were in public school, would you limit their time on some devices? Yeah, you would. Like, you still have to be a parent. You can't just say, hey, yeah, go ahead and play whatever. But you also need to bring them out to the resources, and it doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It can just be your local little place here or local little place there, or it could be going to behind the scenes at a grocery store. It's as simple as that, but like engaging them in different hands-on activities so they understand how the world around them works. And yeah, it's really beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So I hope you all have a blessed day. Sometimes I think the big difference is between a curriculum directed homeschool and an unschool or child-led directive is that most child-led or unschooled individuals, they want this. They want to be able to bring an experience with their children, where a curriculum-based is they would only do an extracurricular activity normally if their homeschool and stuff was done for the day, like as in bookwork, as in curriculum, as in that type of stuff. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but the Roosevelts never went to school. Their children never went to school. They were homeschooled. And they actually have like a small little room that they did some stuff there, and they had somebody from Harvard actually like come in and help tutor their children as well. But they spent a lot of their time outside and just enjoying this.
Okay, but
let's see, it also says you could find glass, and it says you could find shells. You want to leave your crab here so we can look? And fishing rope. We'll find some rope in this mess.
Yeah,
Just set it on the ground.
Okay. Be careful. Yes, I'll let you keep it.
Mom has allowed me to
Hey, do you want to walk over by the water?
Still this is still slime, so I can't keep it.
Still slimy, so you can't keep it. It smells lovely.
Ooh. This grossness. That's so gross.
So there is Roosevelt Cottage. This is a path down to the beach. And down the beach. So we went to the Roosevelt Cottage on Campobello Island, which is in New Brunswick. It actually is off the coast of Lubec, Maine, and you need to cross the border to get in there. But I think there's also a ferry during the summertime to go from New Brunswick over to Campobello. So this is the cottage itself. They were very, very friendly in here. They were very kid-friendly as well. They had a little scavenger hunt for the children to go on. So when you first walked in, there was a bunch of ladies there. They handed them a pencil and a little scavenger hunt table with paper that gave them the opportunity to check things inside of the house, and then also later on the other side on the beach, which was very engaging for the younger crowd especially. It kept them involved in each of the activities. So you enter through the side door over here. Oh yes, and there is bathrooms before you get in. So if you are looking, this is their youngest son's, one of their younger son's bedrooms, and the bathroom next to that, that's on the first floor. And then, so remember here that there was no electricity on the island or in this cottage ever, actually. So there is huge windows in here, which allows lots of light. This is probably one of the darkest rooms of the cottage itself, but I don't know if you can tell in this picture or not. There is window seats all over the place. I was absolutely in love with the window seats. It was gorgeous. I can just imagine sitting there. It's amazing, though, that like, for being really wealthy, it seemed like just a regular, ordinary type of house. Yes, it was big, but it wasn't overly big. So, and it wasn't, well, it was big, but it wasn't overly like ornate or fancy. It was just, you could picture yourself like just sitting down by the window or sitting here and having a cup of coffee. It didn't seem like too fancy. So that was really interesting. So Franklin D. Roosevelt left his hat the last time that he was there, and his pipe, as you can see, sitting here on the table. It really was quite lovely in here. It actually reminded me almost, I'm from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and it almost reminded me of like an old Cape house. And you could just picture the family, you know, having a good time in here. This was their formal dining room, which, as again, you can see isn't super fancy. This is kind of funny. I asked what this thing was. It was actually on the search. And this huge cylinder thing, it looks heavy, but it's really lightweight. She said it weighed 2 pounds. And they would use this to call the children in. So remember, their whole backyard is pretty much the ocean, and you have all the ocean sounds. So this huge like megaphone type thing, before any like electronics or anything like that, they would holler out to the children to come up if they were out playing, because they loved nature. You could see that in everything here. So here is the pantry, which is in the after that dining room is kind of like where the servants would go, and it was in that area over there. This is actually the servants adjacent to the dining room. This is like the servants' table, and then the stoves and all that type of stuff for their area. They had gravity-fed water, which came down from the 3rd floor of this place, and they fed it down and they warmed it in this. It was gravity-fed and then warmed like that. And they said that Eleanor frequently actually ate her or drank her tea in the kitchen there instead of the formal kitchen. She would actually have her tea or maybe breakfast in that area, which is kind of cool. You can tell too, you'll see later, that there wasn't a huge division in what their servants' rooms look like compared to their rooms, which was interesting to me. So this is the laundry, which was kind of cool. And this was on the other side of the kitchen, and there were just some really cool things over in this area. Big wash area, wood stove. Look at all those irons on there to iron the family's clothing. That's just amazing. Can you imagine ironing clothes with all those types of irons? Must have been a job in and of itself. And this was in the kitchen itself. This was for them to call the servants. In each room there was a buzzer, and that would call the servants, and that was done on a battery actually. So this is the table in that same area that Eleanor used to eat her breakfast or sometimes her tea at there. And then all the lights are really cool in there. So this right here is actually Franklin and Eleanor's bedroom in the cottage. And then later on, this is where Franklin stayed once he contracted polio. Part of that, they didn't know that he had polio. It was a long discussion that we had, but they didn't know that he had polio. But he was here for about 6 weeks while he first had polio. Now remember, they're on an island where there's no real medical care or anything here, so he was misdiagnosed quite a few times because polio was supposed to be something for young children, but he had contracted this from a Boy Scout camp in New York before he actually came to Campobello Island. And also this was where their son was born, Franklin Roosevelt Jr., who was actually born a Canadian. So this was actually the second child that they named Franklin D. Roosevelt. Their first child that they named, which was their 3rd child, was born and at 8 months ended up dying, unfortunately, which was a super sad thing. But then they needed a junior, so they ended up naming the child that was born here a junior as well. After leaving because of the polio, he did not end up coming back a lot, but Eleanor and the children did. And Eleanor ended up staying in this room over here, which is the room that she stayed in from thereafter. She never stayed in the their room together again. He did come back 3 times since he had left. I think it was 33, 36, and 39, but don't quote me on that. But her and the children often came. They used to come July, August, and part of September each year. So she came and the children came as well. This rug was actually so beautiful. They also had a lot of artifacts in here from the Passamaquoddy Indians, which were gorgeous, because when they first arrived here, there was a lot of Passamaquoddy in the area, and so they learned a lot from their hunting and fishing, and those types of things was done side by side with the Passamaquoddy, which was really interesting. Feet, if you would. So this room here is one of the servants' rooms. As you can tell, you can't tell a huge difference between the servants' rooms and the family's rooms. This is another servant room, very basic, but still very beautiful. Very like ornate. So these were actually on the same floor. We did not see the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor was shut off due to fire concerns. They wouldn't let people up there. It's a fire safety hazard or whatever. But there were servants' rooms, I mean, literally next door to the family's rooms. So that was really interesting in and of itself. I love the lighting in all these rooms. This was a really neat room. It had like this is a servant's room as well, but it also had like yarn and little embroidery and that type of stuff in. So yeah, it was really interesting. I found the lack of division, I guess, between the servants and the family to be very intriguing, because if you were to go in this house without a tour, you probably couldn't tell whose bedroom was who. It was very beautiful, but very plain in so many ways. Yeah, it was interesting. So this was the guide, and she was so good with all the kids. She was looking at the different things to find, and she was trying to help the kids find it, really engaging them all. So they only had one daughter, and this was their daughter's bedroom, which was almost across from that room where Eleanor stayed after, with the 2 beds in it. This was almost directly across from there. It's just so quaint. I love the light that comes in all of these windows, but if you think, it probably was really dark because lack of electricity, but it was summertime as well when they visited, so it's just beautiful, the amount of light that comes in these rooms. So this is actually the nursery, where they had 2 nannies watch mainly the younger 2 children here, and this is the schoolroom. So they had a tutor who was from Harvard that tutored their children, but they also focused a lot on nature and nature studies and that type of stuff, which was really neat. So they were homeschooled. They never went to school, and they were homeschooled and tutored as was in the days. But this was their little room here for them to do their studies and whatever as well. And there is also, sorry guys, there was also like a wood stove in this room. It was just a really cute room. It really was. It didn't feel like cold and harsh. It really felt very warm and almost engaging in there, just the way it was. Very basic, simple, in the way that it was set up. But you could see that there was just a lot of, you could almost feel the love that was in the house, or the warmth that was in the house. Nothing really felt cold in the house at all. It just felt like practical for what the family needed. So all the kids were looking at the homeschool stuff and whatever. Over to the right is the wood stove that would have warmed that room in that area. I think there was 7 or 8 fireplaces in there. And then this is the nursery where the children would have been. The 2 nannies were in here, so this was one half of the room. And they have that airplane there used to hang from the ceiling, but that was actually from the Roosevelt family. And so it's an artifact, but it was made of parchment paper. No, I forget the name of the paper. So it's very fragile. It used to hang from the ceiling there, but it actually used to fly. So they used to bring that outside with the children and it could fly, which is really kind of cool and interesting. And then there's a boat over here that was on top of the dresser, and this was not from the family, but FDR actually liked to make model boats for his children, and then they would bring them down to the sea and they would try to float the boats, and sometimes they would crash and sometimes they would sink and sometimes they would survive, and that was just a hobby that he liked to do with his children. This deck is actually off of that nursery, and the view was absolutely gorgeous here. I could definitely see two nannies being quite happy being at a cottage like this. Or, you know, I don't know, I wasn't stepping back in that time, but just imagining and stepping back into the time of doing this was really interesting because it felt like the servants, I don't want to say got equal care, but that there wasn't a huge divide like in some areas. So this was the view from the nursery window. There was also another like playroom when you first walked into the house, which I didn't share, and that was full of toys. It was kind of like a little sitting room on one half and then like a play area on the other side, and the kids would have played out there. So now we're going to go outside, and this is actually the ice house. So we went to go see it, and all I could think of was Laura Ingalls Wilder in Little House on the Prairie, how like somebody had locked somebody in the ice shack. Anyway, this is the ice house, the tools inside of the ice house and that type of stuff to keep it all cool, and the kids thought that was kind of neat. You could actually feel it noticeably cooler in there than on the outside. It was a really warm day, so yeah, it was interesting. So this right here is part of the original house, or the original cottage, which is no longer standing, and this was the root cellar underneath the original house. I'd like to actually do some more research on the original house, just because I'm a nerdy geek about certain things, and that's one of the things that I wanted to look into. Yeah, so it's really quite interesting. This would have gone under the original house, and then I'll show you the area here where the original cottage stood. I keep saying house, but it's really considered a cottage. So the original cottage stood here. Now they made it into a butterfly garden, and they gave a little tidbit about that information over here. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the last cottage that we saw on the property, and it was kind of fun. It's where they do Eleanor's tea. I know, it's gorgeous, huh? Maybe we'll walk around the courtyard. Do you know why there's shutters?
No, we don't need a sanitizer for this. I can see the piano. Everybody has their own bedroom.
See the piano he was playing?
Yeah.
Well, that's about it, guys. Back home again, doing all the things. but we had a really good day. Make sure you check out the Head Harbor Lighthouse. We did that the same day as this, so that's why probably in Head Harbor I am completely out of breath, because we did this and then we also did Friar's Head, which we didn't end up walking down to the rock, but we did do the beach like behind the Roosevelt compound. Now, if you were unable, there is so much to do there. If you were more active and wanted to do whatever, there are tons of trails all over the place. There's also tons of things to do there. We chose like the bits and pieces, like, hey, if we're never to come back here again, we want to do these things. But we're hoping that we will be able to go back again to possibly like other grounds of the Roosevelts. Originally they had, I think it was 4 acres, and now it's like hundreds of acres, I think, as part of the Roosevelt Campobello Island compound cottage. I don't know what you call it. I forget what it's called. I'm sorry. But anyway, I hope you all have a blessed and wonderful day, and check those out. If you like videos like this, please make sure that you give me a thumbs up and subscribe. Thanks so much, guys.